First of all, let me say, Charlie, that was probably the best overview of the challenges and the accomplishments of the state of Georgia that I've heard anybody give. And you're to be complimented for that. You certainly have a grasp of the issues, and that's important. Sometimes we hear people talk about things who do not fully understand the magnitude of the issues and the subjects that they're talking about, and you certainly have that grasp. PolicyBEST, although it is a relatively new entry into the political arena, I think has already distinguished itself, and I think you've just seen a reason as to why that is the case. By advocating common sense solutions and working in that direction, we've seen great things accomplished, and PolicyBEST has been our partner in that process. I suppose that the passage of the transportation bill is one great example of that. You took a very practical, common sense approach to it, and I think every member of the General Assembly who is here today will tell you that they appreciated that kind of voice of reason that was often sometimes crowded out in the political debate that surrounds important issues. I don't think I have to talk in detail about some of the things I was going to mention. I just want to point out to you is that this state is growing. You've heard me say before that when I became governor in 2011, we were the 10th largest population state. We're now the 8th largest population state. And we continue to grow by people coming. Some of them are coming because of new job creations. Some of them are coming because of companies that are relocating and coming to our state. And good signs have occurred as a result of that. For example, we all talk about being designated for the 3rd consecutive year by one selection magazine, Site Selection magazine, as the #1 state in the country to do business. We've had that designation from others. We have designations by other rating agencies. Some put us #1, some put us a little bit further down, but we're always right up close to the top. Whoever you're looking and talking to will tell you that Georgia is on the move. We've added about 400,000 new jobs since I became governor. In fact, our unemployment rate has dropped from about 10.4% when I took office to the most recent number I've seen is about 5.7%. The Department of Economic Development tells me that in this past fiscal year, the projects that they have been directly involved with have accounted for 27,000 new jobs and an investment of about $4.75 billion additionally into our state. As you probably know, and it's important financially, but it's important, I think, for us to understand that we are very conscious of the fact that we're one of only 10 states that has maintained a AAA bond rating. And when we make policy decisions and budget decisions, we are conscious not to jeopardize that particular rating because it saves us literally millions of dollars by having that preferable rating. We are also experiencing phenomenal growth in our state that is evidenced by such things as the Port of Savannah. They've set a 6th year of record growth, and every indication is that they will continue to have that kind of growth at the Port of Savannah. Now, one of the things relating to transit is that we have just not too long ago announced the groundbreaking of a new inland port up in Murray County, up in Senator Mullis's part of northwest Georgia. Now what that will do is it will allow us to take, I think the number is something like 50,000 transfer trucks off the road and put their cargo onto rail lines and transport it directly to the Port of Savannah. We have just recently, in order to accommodate the fact that we have the Caterpillar manufacturing facility over in Athens, Georgia, where Bill comes from, we have just reached an agreement with one of the major rail lines for a new switch, which will allow the manufacturing facility in Athens of Caterpillar. I just talked with the president yesterday, as a matter of fact. He was thanking us for this. It will allow him to ship directly with a new switch over in Elberton area to transfer by rail his product directly from the Athens plant directly to the Port of Savannah. Those are the kinds of cooperative arrangements that make a difference in our state. Now, in terms of transportation, I'm told that in October, the United States Chamber of Commerce ranked Georgia as number 4 in transportation and trade. And that's good news. We're going to come up from that ranking because with the opportunities that are now being afforded to us through the transportation bill, we're going to do many more things, so stay tuned for that announcement, which will be coming in the not too distant future. Excuse me. Let me just give you a quick overview of who is in our state in terms of jobs. The number of Fortune 500 companies that have decided to call Georgia home has increased every year that I've been governor, and it now stands at 20. With the number of Fortune 1000 headquarters is now more than 30, and we rank number 6 on the list of states with the most Fortune 500 headquarters. So we're being recognized as the place to be. These are all positive indications that we're doing some things right, but we have some challenges, and Charlie has alluded to some of those, and I'm going to talk about some of them in particular. But just to show you that policy and pieces of legislation make a difference, I don't know that you've seen this number. Since House Bill 170 went into effect, for just this fractional part of our fiscal year, we have received some $219.5 million of additional revenue that is devoted to transportation in Georgia. And you're going to begin to see, you're already seeing some of the results of that, but you're going to see even more. Now, we have challenges, and I was told that today I needed to talk about STEM and its importance, and I will do so because it is important. I got to tell you a quick little story though. I was at an event just 2 days ago actually, and I was sitting across the table from a very distinguished former elected official from the state of Georgia, and he was talking about his experiences in meeting with some of the heads of major technology companies. And he was talking about the fact that we are rapidly moving to a robotics industry where most everything is going to be in the future probably involved with robotics. He said this chief executive of a major technology company said, you know, in the future, a manufacturing plant is only going to have 2 living entities in it. One is a man and the other is a dog. And it is the dog's job to make sure the man doesn't touch anything. And it's the man's job to feed the dog. Now, if we are not prepared for at least a small sliver of that reality, then we're going to get left behind. And I know none of us want that to happen. We're told by 2020 that the STEM field occupations will provide more than 79,000 new jobs right here in our state. So we have begun to focus on that early on in my administration. Some of you participated in the competitiveness initiative that we put in place from the very beginning of our term in office. And out of that have grown many suggestions, some of which have been implemented to move us in the right direction of making sure that we spend taxpayers' dollars in the places that make the most difference. And that's what we're trying hard to do. Out of that study came the conclusion that if you really want to address a growing need for your state, start with finding out what jobs you currently have that you can't fill. And the reason you can't fill them is because you don't have people qualified with the skills to take those jobs. That was the basic, simple premise on which the High Demand Career Initiative was launched. And it is a cooperative effort between the technical colleges and our college and university system. We have to have names for everything, you know. You have to have abbreviations for a lot of things. But out of that High Demand Career Initiative, once we identified the areas, we then translated it into doing something about filling those needs. and we called it the Strategic Industries Workforce Development Grant. And what it was, working with the General Assembly, and I thank the members who are here and the leadership in particular, we focused on areas where you could go to a technical college and get the training and the certification that you need to fill these jobs. There are currently 11 identified areas, and if someone will pursue a technical college degree or certificate in one of those 11 areas, 100% of their tuition cost will be paid for by the HOPE grant. To give you a few of those 11 that specifically relate to STEM, information technology, healthcare technology, practical nursing, certified engineer assistants, precision manufacturing, and computer technology majors such as software development. Now, we also know that we live in an area of high risk of security breaches. And the University of Georgia system has a cybersecurity initiative. Our state is fortunate that the United States Army has decided to move its cyber command to Fort Gordon over in the Augusta area. And we're beginning to see a growth in the private sector of those who are contractors and suppliers for the military. And I think it is an opportunity for us to take advantage of that move. And we want to make sure that these companies that are supplying the personnel or doing the work that complement the actions of the military, that they don't have to go out of state to find the workers. We want them to be right here. So we have done a number of things. One is the recommendation that came to us was that computer programming is going to continue to be a demand. It is a demand area that almost anyone in business will tell you they cannot find enough qualified computer programmers. So, at the suggestion of a major important businessman in our state, he said, why don't you start offering computer programming and coding at an early level in your school, your K through 12 school system. We took him up on that. But in order to fully make it work, it has to be something other than just an elective. It needs to be as a part of a core curriculum for which they get credit for taking it as a core course. We work with the State Board of Education, and they have agreed to do that. We work with the college and university system so that they will acknowledge these courses as a part of mandatory requirements. The simplified version of that was, I was asked the question, why don't you give equal recognition to coding as a foreign language as you do to Spanish or French? I thought about it and I said, well, it's sure a foreign language as far as I'm concerned. And in most instances of our society today, a much more practical one to have familiarity with. So we're beginning to see that penetrate into our schools. I think we all thought at first it would just be at the high school level. Surprisingly, the demand has been at the elementary and middle school level. I have a grandson who's in middle school, and he has taken coding as one of the courses in the middle school in Hall County. So, working together, we're going to be able to have those kind of skills developed early on. And it's sort of like any foreign language. We're told the earlier you learn it, the less difficult it is. And having had to wait until I got to college to take Latin, I can assure you, had I started a little earlier than that, I would have been much better. And it was a dead language when I got hold of it. And it was much deader when I got through it. The importance of starting early, I don't think can be overemphasized. And the General Assembly has worked with us, and your organization here and others have worked with us. And we've done two important things. One is our dual enrollment legislation and Move On When Ready, which I think has great possibilities of keeping bright students moving forward at a rapid pace. These pieces of legislation have been passed, and I thank the members of the General Assembly for that. And we're seeing an uptake on it. the chairman of the budget committee smiling back over there. We didn't think people were going to take it up as much as they have. I've been told in some of our recent numbers is that the cost associated with dual enrollment maybe is twice as high as what we anticipated, because more and more students are taking advantage of it. And that's a good thing, because I think it does allow them to move on, and in the case of those who want to continue their education, to not only get credit for a high school diploma, but also to get credit toward a further degree in a technical college or a college or university system. We've also launched another program, and this is one that quite frankly comes to us as a result of having foreign-based companies who have chosen Georgia as their home. Many of our EU companies are familiar with and have for a very long period of time in their countries had apprenticeship programs. Now, theirs is a much more structured and rigid approach to apprenticeships than we have here in this country. But some of them on their own had started partnerships with local high schools to begin apprenticeship programs. And we have passed legislation to allow that opportunity. I think it is one of the potential growth areas that we should take advantage of and have partners in industry. And we already have, I think when we made the announcement several months ago now, at that time we had 30 different industries who had already signed up to participate in apprenticeship programs. And I think that number will continue to grow. As you may know, last year we had the honor of announcing that Georgia would become the first southern state to adopt the Woodrow Wilson Teaching Fellowship. And that is a program that incentivizes gifted and talented individuals, and these are people that are not in the normal stream of teachers. They are people in the outside worlds, but they have backgrounds in STEM fields, and bring them in to teach in our schools, especially those that have high needs. And we think that that, along with our other commitment to putting dedicated teachers in classrooms, will make a big difference. We have the Innovation Fund, and we're using more of our Innovation Fund for STEM development in our classrooms. And some of you are aware we have what we call the Innovation in Teaching Competition, in which we screen really qualified teachers who've been nominated, and those who are selected receive a grant, a stipend rather, of $3,000, and their school gets an additional $4,000. And since 2011, the Innovation Fund has provided more than $22 million in funding for 41 grants in 33 different school districts. And that is continuing to grow, and it is one that will continue to pay dividends. But now, just selecting good teachers and giving them a stipend for being a good teacher doesn't fulfill what we really wanted, and we've not stopped at that. We have asked Georgia Public Broadcasting if they would video these selected high-quality teachers as they present a course, and from start to finish, and videotape it and make it available to not only schools that choose to use that, but also to parents. It's an online opportunity for those who want to tap into those resources, and it will allow them to make those their lesson plans, their notes, etc., will all be made available. What that can do for us, especially in some of the STEM areas where it is difficult to get qualified teachers in some of our more remote and rural systems, is to access through the internet the amount of resources that a qualified teacher through a video presentation can bring to that classroom. Now, in order to even do that, though, you have to have your schools connected with high-speed internet. And over the last several years, in fact, from fiscal years 2014 through 2015, we've devoted some $70 million to ensuring that every school in the state of Georgia is connected to high-speed internet. So we will remove the excuses when this opportunity is presented to the schools. Let's hope they take advantage of it. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to ask those kind of questions of local boards of education, local school superintendents. What are you doing to take advantage of what the state has provided to you in terms of internet education? So I think they will take advantage of it, and I feel sure that we will see positive results from it. The long and the short of that is that we are becoming the Silicon Valley of the South. And we can borrow names. That is a distinction that California has earned, and we are more than willing to tap into the southern version of the Silicon Valley. Let's talk about another area, and that is financial transactions. I think some of you have heard me tell the story that I guess about a little over a year ago, I was asked to go speak to a meeting, as I'm asked to speak to a lot of different meetings, and sometimes you know what you're getting into, other times you really don't. This was one of those that falls in between. I was asked to speak to a group of within the financial institutions. I thought maybe this was just a bunch of bankers. It wasn't. These were the people who work in the electronic transfer of financial resources. And in fact, it's shocking. 70% of all U.S. financial transactions that are being processed come through the state of Georgia. We are a hub for that. And it represents about $85 billion in transactions that pass through our state, specifically in Metro Atlanta. Payment processing companies employ nearly 40,000 individuals. And later today, and I have the media here, so y'all don't give away all of the details of this one, but later today, Mayor Reed and I will be at an announcement of another financial technology firm that is expanding here in our state, and come see what the numbers are. I'm not going to tell you today, but it is a further indication of Atlanta and the state of Georgia being the hub of much of this activity. Health information technology is another growing field. We have some 225 companies in our state that are devoted almost exclusively to health information technology, and they employ about 30,000 people in the state of Georgia. Now, I noticed that one of Charlie's notes at the bottom of one of his presentations there that he didn't talk about, so I'm going to take advantage to talk about it, is that for a very long time, because of some political posturing and some sincere on issues related to health sciences, the state of Georgia was gaining the reputation that we were not friendly to the bioscience industry. I think that was pretty well dispelled when Baxter Pharmaceutical, now Baxtera, I believe is their new name, they split off and formed a separate group, when they decided to come to Georgia with the largest single financial investment in capital of a $1 billion facility. And I know those of you who live and who travel east on I-20, you know of the new facility that's going up, and we've already had the groundbreaking on a comparable training facility. It is a bioscience workforce training center that is in that same general complex area where this pharmaceutical company is located. And it will serve, it's a part of our Quick Start program, where we will train workers for specific industries that are in our state, either new ones coming in or those that are already here that want to expand. And this is a facility that we think will generate more of the life science industry coming to Georgia, because we can train their workforce, and we're going to have facilities there that will be a great incentive for them to do that. Well, just to tell you how important qualified workers are, I'm told that across the United States, a recent survey was done of American employers, and they reported that they have about 5.9 million positions that they can't find qualified workers for across the United States. Is it any wonder that Congress is besieged with requests for greater visa requests to bring in qualified workers from overseas? Because these are the vacancies that we're not filling with Americans. And we've got to be able to train our American population so that we can fill those needs right here at home. And that's what we're working very hard to do. But you can't wait until a person graduates from high school, and then say, well, we got a great technical college program, we've got a great college and career program, we've got a great educational opportunity at our universities in Georgia, and we do have all of those. We have to start early, because the basic reality is we still lose too many of our young people who never even make it to graduation. And many of those who do make it to graduation are not competent to succeed in education beyond high school. That's why the General Assembly and I have wrestled with the issue about paying for remedial education after they leave high school. Now, if you want to get serious about that and think about it for a minute, why should we be having to pay for students who do not have adequate literacy skills? And in order to enter into the mainstream of a college or a technical college, we have to pay for them to go to a remedial program. That may be one of the better tests of the quality of the schools from which they come. You don't manipulate that one. Just everybody takes the test. And if you don't pass it, they're going to send you to a remedial program. Currently, I'm told that only about 1 in 3 Georgia students is reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. That's a staggering statistic. Because all of us know that if you can't read, you're not going to be successful. And if you're having that kind of deficiency at the end of the 3rd grade, how do you expect them to successfully move through the matriculation program and graduate from high school? And we've got to do a better job with that. Some people say, well, just spend more money. Well, let me tell you what the statistics show. From 1970 through 2010, education spending in the United States increased by 185%, while performance on national exams failed to improve. Now, I know there's a correlation of money being spent in the right places, but that is not a simplistic answer that solves the problem. As you may know, during my administration, we have increased K through 12 funding every year. In fact, with the help of the General Assembly and with their enthusiastic support, I might add, we have spent, as a percentage of our state budget, a greater percentage than any administration since Carl Sanders. In other words, over the last 50 years, these last few years, we have spent a higher percentage of our state budget on education than any administration or General Assemblies in the previous 50 years. In fact, during the last 2 years alone, we've seen an additional $1 billion added to K through 12 funding. But in spite of all that, we have about 139 schools that are now classified as chronically failing schools. That means they have failed to achieve a score above an F for 3 consecutive years. And here again, thanks to the General Assembly, the opportunity for people to vote on the question of creating an opportunity school district will be on the ballot next fall. And I think it's an important and critical step. If you're satisfied with the status quo, then you don't need to vote for that. Who can be satisfied with the status quo? I don't think anybody could or should be. I think this is one step in the direction of being able to intervene in these very chronically failing schools where local administration and local leadership has not been able to change that pattern. 3 years is a long time in the educational life of a child. If they are subjected to inferior education for those 3 years of their education, they're only, K through 12, there's not a whole lot of years to be able to waste and throw away. They're going to be hampered for the rest of their life. I believe that educational reform is the ultimate criminal justice reform, and I think the numbers bear that out. when you see that almost 7 out of every 10 that are incarcerated in our state prisons don't have a high school diploma or a GED, which means they dropped out of school. Some of them dropped out at a very early age. Their ability to read and to write is very, very poor in many, many cases. And we're having to now go back in as a part of criminal justice reform to go back and do and provide for them educational opportunities and skills that they did not take advantage of when they were of the age and in the regular public school system. So it is all tied together. We try to segment these things sometimes as we talk about them and as we deal with them legislatively, but it's all got a common thread. If somebody is not qualified by way of a skill base, they're not going to do well in school, and they're not going to do well in the workforce. And we have to try to do something about it. So I hope that all of you will feel that the importance of passing the Opportunity School District legislation is as significant as I believe that it is. And I think with that, we're going to be able to move in to some of these very chronically failing schools and do something about it. I know I'm running out of my time. Let me just conclude by saying this. I spoke to the Leadership Georgia class just a week or so ago, and that is a great leadership training organization that takes young people across our state, exposes them to what's going on in Georgia, and challenges them to the opportunities of the future. This year, their theme was Georgia on the Rise, and in specifics, they focused on technology on the rise. And they had the opportunity to see some of the technology facilities that we have in our state, and I think many of them were awakened as to what we already have, but also the potentials of the future. Technology is on the rise. And if you want to be that guy that's walking around in that plant feeding that dog, you better have the skills to be qualified to get that job. Thank you very much for what you do. Charlie, in particular, I want to thank you for what your organization has done, and we will continue to work with you in a constructive fashion for the betterment of the state of Georgia and for the people of our state. Thank you very much.